Hey guys. Hi, this looks pretty good. I got my tools. Output, got it. Hi, so most of the questions, just so you guys know already, most of the questions are coming from YouTube and preloaded on the Patreon. What's up, baby? Um, but we figure we'll stream on the phone too. Hey guys, UK, I don't even know where KY. Ah, Kentucky. What's up, River? How you guys doing? Okay, it's gonna be hard to see the. Hey, YouTube, can you hear? Is it coming through the AirPods? Can you tell if it's coming through the AirPods or if it's like super quiet? Yeah, sounds great. Perfect. Okay. We're pretty set up. This is our first live, so 25. Okay, cool. 25,000? No, 2,000. Okay, so basically this is a good place for you guys to ask whatever questions you want. I only have this thing in a whiteboard to answer them, but we can try to figure out some tricks. We have some questions preloaded from the Patreon. We have some questions preloaded from Instagram stories, and then uh, also as they come in. So we'll just kind of riff this one and see how it goes and learn from there. Anyways, I think what comes first is just while everyone's still getting in here, the events that we're running this week and within the next month. We have Skate Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. That is on Saturday, February 10th. That's this Saturday. Skate Charleston. That's an absolutely free event. There's a $3 skate park entrance fee, but we had someone who donated to us to cover the first first 100 entries. So if you guys are around Charleston, you show up noon or before. I think you'll get. I think you guys will get in free. Hey, Cody, kind of mellow, sick. Thanks for coming. How do I get my confidence back after slamming? Will you write that down? We have some of the questions preloaded. So, the Skate Charleston one, Saturday, February 10th. That's this Saturday, and then we're going to Houston Vert Ramp. I think their Instagram page is literally like Houston Vert Ramp. March 2nd. I don't know what day of the week that is. Uh, March 2nd and 3rd. Yeah, there's sessions in the morning and sessions in the afternoon. You can check out our website, SKATEiQ.com to book, or go through Instagram. I mean, if you let us know you want to come, we'll make it happen. No problem. Down 48 pounds in 3 months just from skating. 50/50s on a mini ramp. Keep overshooting, popping out. Tips to get weight more in the ramp. I'm actually going to start with that because I think that's awesome. And then, okay, let's cover 50/50s on like. Yeah, he asked for small transitions. I'm gonna try to make sure everybody can see it, but he asked for small transitions, but there's really not that much of a difference with what goes on at the top for small or big transitions. The big thing that's important, how to control. Basically, what we're trying to control is how far we go this way or how far we are this way. So instead of thinking about it like you have a really small, zone to work with right at the top. Is this too small? Let me draw bigger. I wish maybe we could bring it closer, but our setup is kind of like the computer's balancing on a couch and it's the whole thing. Um, Yeah. So we're talking about like 50-50s or lip tricks or like axle stalls, anything like that. Frontside grinds is a great one. And he was asking, okay, how do I control? Like, I either end up too much over the deck or I get stuck in the ramp. What's most likely happening is you forget that you have all this space up here in between. So I don't want you to think about it so much like I'm trying to get my board up on top of everything with my body in the ramp, or vice versa. I don't want you trying to get your body up way too far, like over the deck, but keep your board in. I know it sounds obvious, but you would really be surprised with how many people try that. What I would recommend is instead of focusing on your board, you focus on where your hips are. So if you're doing even kick turns, make sure on your kick turns, your hips aren't staying way down in the ramp, right? Because I could do like a frontside kick turn and I can stay under the board. That actually feels pretty comfortable. But if I ever wanted to turn that into a frontside grind, now I'm way down here and I'm trying to reach the board on the deck. And no matter what, from back here, I'm never going to feel like I'm on top of it. So basically, don't think about the board at all. But like if this was your hips over top of the board, let your hips float up over the coping, and then you can set the board down if you want. But if it doesn't feel good, your hips are still in a good place where you can kind of do your kick turns and feel like you're above the deck, right? There's a difference also between just going into the frontside grind and leaning forward at it. It's all about getting your hips above the coping. So now you have a leg to stand on. Like literally, it gives you a leg to stand on the coping. Does that make sense? We have a video on the channel about it, but it's an old one and it is me sitting on the computer going over like footage of me doing it. We don't have one of like the new tutorials that we've been filming, and I went back and deleted so many because we were just like brand new and I didn't like some of them, and so I think it's still there though. I watched your video, but I cannot frontside 180 to save my life. I can ollie pretty high, but frontside is rough. So frontside 180s versus backside 180s. It seems like when you start skating, you're put in a box either where you turn frontside or you turn backside. And part of it, I think, is like our natural tendency. Like I'm trying to figure out, like I wish we could run a pole. We have to figure out how to run a pole. Regular stance skaters are more likely to like going frontside. Like I think that's legit. And it must have something to do with dominant hand, dominant foot, and like how it feels comfortable to stand on the board. Because if you're more it gets complicated right away without knowing what if that's even true. It's just been like when I was a kid, I know that a lot of the regular stance skaters liked doing frontside, and a lot of the backside skaters, a lot of the goofy skaters liked going backside. So I'll start by saying this: if you're generally closed off as a skater, right? You kind of like standing a little more like square to the board. You're not like facing out where you're going. You're more closed off. It's gonna be easier for you to turn frontside. Because one of the things that surprised me is through all these videos, the comments that come in, we get so much information on the way like people's progression is working. He's like, hey, yeah, thanks for videos. I always sucked at backside. I watched the tutorials and I learned backside 180s, and now I can't do frontside anymore. And it's like, I don't I don't know why that would happen unless your stance on the board actually changed without you noticing. And now it's harder for you to get that wind up. You know, if you're standing in a way where you can wind up to go backside, it might make it harder for you to stand that same way and go frontside. So basically, move around on the board a lot just while you're skating. Like you should be able to skate with like facing completely forward, and you should be able to skate. Even though I'm goofy, I'm pretty comfortable skating feeling like I'm going backwards at something. If like if it's like a, you know, a nollie front side, you know, you can move around a lot on the board to make things easier and to kind of get your brain to switch into like either okay, I'm in backside mode or I'm in frontside mode. Those are really big differences. Okay. But I think the main question was I can't do front 180s. So what we know about front 180s. So what we know about spinning actually is if this is my back foot, right? If my back foot's on the board, I can pull the board, I can pull the tail towards me pretty easy to get spinning backside. But if I want to go front side, you know, let's pretend that like this is my leg. It's actually pretty hard to push the tail out in front of you. So a lot of people who have trouble with front side end up ollieing, and this back foot starts to get ahead of the board, and then now it's this really awkward position where you're not able to feel like you can push the board around to finish it. What that'll feel like when that's happening is this. It'll just feel like you fall forward and you can't pick up your board because as soon as you'll pop, you'll feel yourself start to fall off that like toe side, and then it's a weak pop. The board kind of rolls. It'll spin halfway, and you're like, man, this is weird. So what a natural thing to do is try to fix it by leaning back when you pop to get the board in front. But then when you turn, now you're all the way back here. And then so you have two options. You're like, either I jump off the board forward or I land on the nose and I slip out, and both feel like crap. So my recommendation would to be find a way that you can set up so you can push your back foot as you pop, right? So your shoulder and your leg kind of work the same. So I can show you even though we can't really see my feet because it's a brand new system we have here. But if I'm popping and let's say like my shoulder, that would be my hip. If I'm popping with my hip too far over, I'm never going to be able to get that foot to bring the tail around. So what I'd recommend be to drop everything back to where you're facing like a little bit backwards to where you're going. So like you know what it would be? It'd be like a switch heel flip. That's what the position would look like. If you were going to set up for I'm goofy, so if I were to set up for like a switch heel naturally, you know how you kind of end up facing a little backwards? You can do that even going like goofy or regular stance, you just turn around into like a switch heel flip position. So you're going backwards. This toe side, this front toe can be a little bit off of the board. Your back foot can be way back here. But now, as soon as you pop, you have this foot to pull, you have this foot to push. And your only job from here is to pick everything up. And now you can start pushing and pulling your feet around. That one's quite tough for front side. Um, that one, yeah, it's a yeah. Awesome content, really helpful. Do you have any tips for a 40-year-old skater? I've struggled since 91. Always struggled to learn things new. Yeah. We have give me a minute on that. Let's cover just some of the basic tricks. We have that already preloaded though, because that is a question that is coming in a ton, actually. Tips while rolling, tips while moving on asphalt, comfortable pushing goofy even though I'm regular. Yeah, there's a lot of good questions here. Um, but let's start with like ollies, 180 shove-its, kick flips, and then we'll spend a lot of time on like the more general on the more general questions. Hey, thanks, Jason. Yeah, well, we have to pay attention to our body position. I think that's probably, if I had to pick one reason that our channel has grown the way that it has, is because I don't talk about the skateboard. I don't talk about sliding your feet. I don't talk about any of the push down and slide and revert. I'm always talking about body positions. And once you realize that it's you standing on the skateboard, not just your feet doing everything, that hey, like you're gonna have to take this hip and really drop it back. Or when you bend your knees, you don't want your knees falling over the toe side of the board, because this is all these things are going to start happening. I'd really challenge you guys to think less about the skateboard, more about your body position and weight placement and weight distribution, and then see what the skateboard does when you try your tricks the normal way. For ollies, one thing that this one's important. So we're going to bring out the whiteboard again. Let's say this is the ground, okay? And your board is going to sit, right? Your board's going to be sitting above the ground, okay? Is that a little small? Or can you guys see that? It's all right? Looks good. Okay, so to make an ollie happen, right? Everyone knows that your tail has to hit the ground. All right, this is the tail. This would be the nose. All right, this tail has to hit the ground. But what people don't seem to realize is that everything is actually going this way, right? Your body. So like if you're on the board and you want to do an ollie, the most important thing is that you jump, that you get everything going this way. Much more like a hippie jump than it is like, I don't know, kick starting a bike or something. People treat it like we have to be pushing down into the ground. But in reality, when we jump, we actually start to release everything from the ground and everything starts rising. So don't think about ollies as a downward motion. And it's like this on vert too. I mean, the more that I think about it, even pumping, right? When you see someone go up a transition, everybody wants to push down into the transition or take off for an air. Everyone wants to push down at the air. The biggest thing that you can do is learn how to jump off your skateboard. Like if you can do hippie jumps and then you can jump just that high and start to bring the board with you, that's when you'll start getting off the ground. Maybe small. Oh, it looks fine on computer, but phone, it might be a little small. Okay, well. Okay, the next thing that we need to know is we're not jumping off of, wait, I'm going to remember to draw big. We're not jumping off of the ground. So you'd think that your back foot is going down as your front foot is going up. But have you ever tried to jump like that? I mean, seriously, like you get stuck on the ground. All right. So instead of thinking about it like this, I want you to think about ollies like your front foot is going up a lot and your back foot is coming up a little bit, but where your balance is more important than actually, like, once you get your back foot up, you're fine. But if you, so this little dot would be like your back truck. Okay. So if you fall this way, if you're standing on your board, let me make sure you can see that. That's perfect. So if you're standing on your board, back foot, front foot, your trucks. So if you're standing there and you fall this way to then jump off the ground, nothing is going to come up with you. You're going to plant everything to the ground and then jump off of it. The real trick is to have your weight right over your back truck. So when you squat down, you can jump off of both feet and lift your front leg up so the tail slaps into the ground and your back foot never touches the ground. So if you go on, there's a bunch of slow-mo pages on YouTube actually. You can watch like how to you can watch ollie videos, slow-mo, but any trick. Kickflip, front 180s, shove-its, whatever. You can watch that back foot and it actually starts to jump off the tail as that tail is going down. And once people realize that, it seems like they can start visualizing how that board is actually gonna be coming up. This motion, it's really hard to imagine. It's really hard to imagine that pushing the tail down, like how is everything coming up? You realize you just keep your weight over the back truck, and as you jump, you're picking up your front foot a ton so that tail can get lower. Boom, and everything is coming up this way. If you were to get out of the way of an ollie completely, like as soon as you initiate the ollie, if you were to actually just like disappear, your board would just do this, right? Your board would hit the ground and that nose would just be rising slowly. The only reason it flattens out is because this front foot stops it. And then however high you lift that back foot, right, that's where the board's going to come up to. Does that make sense? It's I know it's hard on the computer with a whiteboard and a handboard, but those concepts are solid. Curious to know a realistic order. I actually do have your question written down, DM. One sec. Okay, and so it's the same thing. It's the same thing for the back foot. I never noticed till you separate out. The back foot always separates. Yes. So imagine if it didn't separate, right? How would kickflips work? Because if you are not comfortable, right? If you can't jump off the board, right? Let's say our front foot's on, but our back foot is this way. How would the board ever flip? If everything stayed on both feet, you wouldn't be able to give the board space from your back foot to flip. So as you move from like ollies to kick flips, all you're really doing is developing more feel for your front foot as everything is going up. What happens when most people try kick flips, they start kicking down. They start going right, and they want to kick right down at the ground. You have to remember that the board's going to follow your front foot. So as you're popping, if your front foot stops, that's as high as the board's gonna go, right? It doesn't really matter. So if I'm kicking down and through the board, this is gonna start happening, or I'm actually gonna throw the board down. So when we're thinking about the direction that we're flicking, put out like what would be a good way to visualize that on your own? Like, because I want you to realize, I might have to draw this one out because this one doesn't have a very strong nose and tail. When you're ollieing, the board's going to be like this, right? And your front foot is going to be here, but the nose is going to tilt even more. Let me try to draw it. This is a good one. So let's say this is the board, right? And this is the nose, and this is the tail, right? Ground's down here, right? So you don't want to be kicking down this way because that's down. Like if the board was flat, right? If you think about it like this, that would be the equivalent of kicking down in this way to flip it. Does that make sense? You don't want to be kicking through the board so much. So what you can do is make sure you're rolling your ankle into this zone of the board so you can kind of feel between. You should be able to feel when the board goes from flat, and as that nose starts, kind of put your laces right there. So you should be able to really feel that. And if you can't feel that, work more on your ollies so you can actually ollie and start to feel what it's like for your front foot to hit that spot. What's going to happen most likely is your foot slides off because you don't really have control of your front foot. You just ollie and your foot's out here, right? So we need to ollie and be able to put our front foot in that pocket of the nose. Let me try to get it so you can see it. I don't know how things work. Okay. And then still be picking everything up, because once you get this motion, now you have your front foot preloaded so it can flip, and you're able to slow your front leg down and not just automatically be flying through the nose. So once you get that piece, you lay your front foot there, the direction your front foot goes is just a little bit less steep than the nose, right? You don't want to kick up off this way because you're not going to hit anything. But in reality, once you get your foot in that pocket, you can actually go up and out even more, right? So if you look at it on a board, it would be like we pop, that front foot's here, and then it's out and up from there as that board flips, and now we're over top of it, right? You ever have that issue where you're flipping, now your front foot is under the board? Well, you can fix that by getting your front foot locked up in that spot and then actually releasing it up and out and using that extra little bit we have in the nose to kick it and let it float. Thanks for $10. Frisco Tech, sick. SKATEiQ Patreon is all bangers. Wow, thank you. Yeah, go join our Patreon. We have like 187 or more videos in there covering like flat ground and vert skating. In the understanding vert, that's probably my favorite part of the course is the understanding vert, because right, there's not very much info on how vert ramps work. There's like videos here and there that are like, hey, to do a backside or do a kick turn and grab your nose. That's like all you really find on vert skating. Or like if you're scared of dropping in, like do it anyways. So the understanding vert course is like, I don't know how many videos exactly. I think it's like 45. There's a separate drop-in course. And there's a separate 540 one, which is funny because I think 540s are just a little bit, like you guys will grow into the 540 course a little bit. Another 10 Brad, gotta go, so I won't see the answer. But yes, this will be on replay. I can't get backside errors. Bad backside rotation and front foot comes off the toe side of the board every time. Yeah, we'll cover this one for sure. It's one of the most common issues. Thank you for the 10, Brad. We the replay will be posted automatically right away. No stress. Thanks again. So what the main understanding vert course is going to cover is actually, so let's say this is actually pretty good. So the deck, let's say that's a line. Let's put a line here, put one here, right? And then we can put one in the middle of flat bottom for fun. So the info that we felt like was really lacking in vert is, what do we do in each section, right? So, and then we can actually do this again because they're exactly the same. So what do we do? What do we do in each section? Like we get questions like, I can't get height on my airs, but it's not because of my speed or pump. And it's like, what do you mean? So this is fixing a lot of the misconceptions that happens just with pumping and with kick turns. And if you guys do that right, backside airs aren't, like, I don't want to say they're not hard because it's still a whole learning curve, but they're incredibly difficult if you're not getting your pump right. So what the course covers mostly is when you're pumping on a vert ramp, right? We're going this way and we're going this way. How do we transition from flat to vertical and not lose speed? And then how do we do the same thing coming back? And what most people try to do is push into the ramp all the way through this zone. So, right, you can imagine that. You're going through the flat bottom, and then you want to gain speed, so you start pushing into the ramp as it starts rising. And then now you're locked up in the ramp, and you feel super cool because, wait, I'm getting ringers in my ear. One sec. There we go. So you're pushing into the ramp as you're going up, and you feel super cool because you're feeling like 3 times as many G's as you were before, and you think you're gaining speed from it. But I have some really bad news for you, that not only are you losing speed, you're bleeding your speed through the bottom of the ramp. It's actually turning your energy into coming out this way. So it's like you want to do a backside air. So you go into the ramp and you squat down into the transition, and it just sits there and then explodes out. And you're like, man, that one was close. I got a lot of air. Wait, one sec. 20 from Joe? Thanks for all the vids. I grew up skating street. I'm learning mini ramp now. Got rocks, kick turns, drop ins. Dude, thank you for the 20. I appreciate that. I have lived in Oceanside for the last 10 years. I just got rid of my place. But thank you. I really appreciate that, man. So what we talk about is how we go from this, right? Let's say this is horrible and we don't want to do that anymore. We go, okay, we're coming across the flat bottom. How do we start going this way to counter these G's that happen here? So when we get up here, I'm just going up. Vert's really complicated, and you can make it as complicated as you want. But if you get this right, where when you're coming at the transition, you're actually getting up to stay inside the ramp instead of pressing up against it as hard as you can stay up inside of the ramp. So you're just going up now. You won't lose your speed. And now you can predict how far you're coming, and now you can predict if you're going to flat or not. So some processes that happen. Some processes that happen that are really common. Right, you guys have seen Jake. You guys have seen Jake's fall, right? Gotta run. Hey, thanks again for the 20, Joe. That is so nice, you guys. I live streamed a lot just playing video games way back on Twitch to like one or two people. And now that this channel has grown, we were just talking about lives, but I did not expect this kind of support right away. So you guys are just insane. Yeah, Shaq, we're just going through the list. We're gonna be here all night if we take it too slow. So do you lean forward with the more or less speed that you have? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. And the simple answer is no. Because think about it. So I'm going to have a really big skateboard here so you guys can see it. If I am on my board, right? That's so bad. Boom. Let's go stick figure. Okay. If I'm on my board here and we know that everything is going to start going up the transition, I'm automatically going to have to, the way the transition works, it's automatically going to lean me back. If all four wheels are on the ramp, it's automatically going to lean me back. The trick is to keep the weight placement the same during that time. So if I start leaning too far forward, right, to prepare for it, as I run into the transition, it's going to start crushing me up against the wall. And then I'm going to have to start leaning back to get back over the board. But now, if let's pretend that we're just standing still and doing the same thing. I'm leaning forward and then I'm leaning back. So I'm actually changing where I am on the board while skating. And that's like a big no-no in vert skating. You don't want to be leaning. You don't want to be changing where you're balanced on the board during the transition. So the problem is if I lean forward to prepare for the transition, I'm going to have to start leaning back. And then now that's too much. And then imagine doing like a big air. So now that little bit of weight shift you did is just slowly going to tip you back the whole time, right? And if you don't do anything, now you're leaned so far forward that best case scenario, you lose speed, right? So the thing would be to pick a spot on the board that you're trying to balance on, right? So I'm a little bit off of my front foot. Like this SKATEiQ logo would be a pretty good place to say that my balance is left ear or whatever you want to call it if they're like a golfer and you think about it in terms of ears. You can actually keep this balance on the board all the way up through the top and as you turn. The thing is, as transitions tighten up, like on a big mega ramp, yeah, you can be on that lead side of the board. You arguably have to. You want to just keep your balance there when you do it. But let's say super fast transition. You're going fast. Whoop. What you can do is actually take your center of mass and keep it on towards the back of the board, right? So we can be back here skating with the board a little bit ahead of us. So as that board changes directions, we might get pitched a little forward because the transition's tight, not because we're trying to do it, but we're back here. So that board is going to hit the transition, whoop, start to change directions. Now we get smashed up into it, and now we're on the center, right? It's not so much just because you're going fast. You have to think relative to your speed and the transition that you're about to hit. If you're hitting like a regular mini ramp at mini ramp speeds, keep your balance like you would skating down the street, right? Good way to check your balance. You can just be pushing. Stand on one foot and then set your back foot down as lightly as you can. And then balance over and then start to evenly distribute your weight, but don't change your balance. Don't go from one foot Okay, now my back foot's on, right? So you can hold that one foot, set your back foot there really lightly, then evenly distribute your weight without changing your balance. And that's generally going to be a good position to skate in. Okay, dropping in. So when we're dropping in on something small, this is actually a very useful tip, and I didn't figure it out till just recently. So let's say it's just a little bank, right? Say it's nothing crazy. It's hard to visualize how skating works in a transition, right? So like if it looks like this, you're gonna get all freaked out because you think each spot's really important. It's really very similar to going down a bank. So that's how we're gonna cover it. So if I'm this guy up here and I want to go down this bank, I can't just skate this way and pretend that as my board falls away from me, right, that everything's going to be fine, right? Just look at the angle of the board and then look at the angle of my shoulders. That's not going to be any fun. You can't really skate leaning back as your weight shifts back, as your board's shifting forward. It's a nightmare. I mean, we've all done it, but it's called looping out. So what we can do is take this little guy and tell him to tilt your shoulders to the angle of the ramp while we're skating on flat ground, right? So this would be like shoulder tilt. So what that does, right? We're skating. I know I'm going this way. We're gonna go down. I'm not leaning forward, right? So if I'm right here, I'm not actually leaning my body off of the ramp. I'm still keeping my balance in the same place, but I'm tilting. I'm starting to lean forward. I feel a bit more weight on my front foot, but my balance isn't really changing very much. So now as that board starts to follow the transition, now I'm able to keep a good amount of weight on my front foot. And then we can actually come at it just the same. So I don't have to go from this position. Now we're at the bottom of the transition. I don't have to lean back to get to flat ground. I can skate like this on flat ground, let the transition happen, and then have that strong front foot as the transition ends, right? So what that process would look like is this guy right here starts skating down the ramp and everything's comfortable, right? Because this is what the angles of the shoulders are at. But as we come through the bottom of the transition, the big thing that I'll notice people doing is they think that they have to start flattening out their body as soon as the transition starts. But that just means you're leaning back, right? So if you're leaning back as the board is looping this way, now that's where things happen. That's where bad things happen. So we stay down. We let that board take that transition. We can have our weight on the front foot, and then we just be strong on that front foot at the end, and we can stay over it. And then now we can recenter ourselves, because nothing's going on anymore, right? That's a beautiful picture. You put that in your wallet. Oh, I really like the description of the way your shoulders are parallel. Well, so that's again, let's take a step back to basically why this is working, right? Why this channel is working, because we're going to be talking about body positions, rhythm, momentum, strength, those kind of things. The more you can wrap your head around yourself, your body, and less like that the skateboard is some magical thing, I think you guys will improve really fast. That's how the weight distribution works for vert. It's a little more complicated than just a bank, but as you guys are going like from bank to a small quarter pipe, that's a really good way to visualize it. Okay, so I'm standing on the deck of a small mini ramp. I'm not back here and then throw yourself down into the ramp so you don't fall too much back. A sneaky little thing that happens, people start back here, then they start leaning forward and they know their brain kicks in, go, oh, I'm about to just send my face into the flat bottom. So I'm going to back off a little bit. And then this little bit of motion of leaning back, as that transition hits, boom, you're off the board. It's not how much you're leaning back, it's about when you lean back. So I can actually skate pretty back seat. You just sit on the back of the board, but I stay right here and just a little bit forward whenever anything is happening. But if I'm forward and as a transition happens, if I lean back at all during that, now I can't stop it. So you're sitting on like a mini ramp. You have your board over the deck. You can actually tilt your body to match where your wheels are going to be on the ground. So check this out. This is a pretty good one. So let's say this is there's a lot of vert here. So, but let's say this is the vert. Oh, I have a different color. Wait, you guys can see this. I just can't. So let's say this is like the vert. It's big for the example. This area doesn't really matter that much. So like, don't worry about trying to like get into the vert part of the ramp. What matters is this area when you're actually going to be feeling G's down through the ramp. So the angle that you want your shoulders has to match where the ramp starts. So that's why people say it's probably annoying when they say, hey, dropping in on a vert ramp's just like dropping in on a mini ramp. And you're like, no, it's not. I broke 4 bones. In reality, it is very similar if you know that this is the only part of the ramp that matters. Okay, so let's just, with that in mind, we're going to delete the vert. And we're going to go through the same process just for a small drop in, right? So if you're standing up on the deck of a small mini ramp, you can get your body into the transition, and then just by getting over the ramp, now you're standing on your board on a steep transition, and it flattens out, but you stay there, right? For vert, the only thing that changes is this first part is just going to take longer. It takes better discipline to stay close to the ramp, and it takes a little bit of trust not to send yourself all the way down the ramp because it's steep and scary. Right? That's one of my favorite concepts. I actually haven't gotten a lot of students who can't drop in or go down a bank, but that is the way that I would go about it. Just people are especially skaters, they're pretty talented. So like if it starts to make sense what's going on, generally they're fine. They're like some of the most curious, fast learners that I know. I mean, seriously, like 100%. So I forgot to mention, because we're probably going to cut these down. We're going to post the whole thing, but we'll also cut them down into different YouTube videos. I forgot to mention in the beginning, like what we're doing, like what are our goals at SKATEiQ, right? It started very naturally, just wanting to, like, I just sat down on my computer and I'd riff for like 30 or 45 minutes. Like this is one of my favorite things to do. But then we realized, like, we're in the position where we can actually have like the biggest skateboard coaching database in the world. Like we all know, like YouTube skateboard tips have been lacking like really bad. Like skateboarding is one of the only things that you can't go on YouTube and learn. Like you've never skated before and you want to do all flat ground rails and 540s on vert, like you're kind of in deep water. So like a huge goal we have here is to actually just solve that problem. Translate the content, into 5 different languages. We'll probably have like 4 or 5 different channels with like professional voiceovers and it's not keywords searches. It's like localization, so it actually makes sense to locals in whatever language they speak. And really, like, another reason it works is the content is like feel good because there's a lot of like kids accomplishing goals with like a strong role model. But also on the underside of it, we have a strong infrastructure. Like we're running really strong like skill-based camps. Our Patreon is it's working. Like we have 190 videos and I'm getting messages of like backside airs make sense. I don't know what happened. I fixed my pump and kick turn and now I can do backside airs. I've been working on this for 5 years. Like, thank you very much. So our goal is to really build out that database covering all disciplines and seriously make it like a one-stop shop. And also have other people doing tutorials and being a part of it, but we want to make sure it's done right. I mean, you guys have probably seen other apps or other channels that stray too far from the source, but like, we really want to give you guys good information and we really want a lot of it out there. In next month, we have lip tricks on, especially on vert. We're gonna try to do a mini ramp series as well. Lip tricks, some more flip tricks. Because I know like ollies and 180s and kick flips are very popular. And I'm a stickler for the fundamentals. Like I don't want you guys to have tray flips before you like work on your ollies, please. It'll make your life a lot better. Then we will do mini ramp. Park is gonna come a little bit after, partly just because we're going to be in Washington. The weather sucks and we can't really bank on it. Yep. I covered the languages. Oh, some more parts of the Patreon. I don't know if you guys have checked it out. Really check it out. It's a $10 monthly membership. It's there's 3 channels. One's full access. One is for coaches only, and it actually already filled up. But if you want to get on the wait list for like, if you want to learn how to coach, there's specific content fully dedicated to coaches, private chat, and we kind of help each other solve some problems. Sometimes we submit videos of students and all that, and kind of everybody pitches in on their theories and this and that. It's a small group, so I'd recommend if you do want in on that, I would hop in on the wait list. And then there's Apex. That's closed off. You can only sign up for the first 5 days of the month so we can make sure that we're organized on our back end, because it comes with an hour of online coaching, because of video submission and like session plans and ways to improve like consistently over the month, what might be a good idea to work on. We update it every month. It's like we're very excited about that. We're not going to stop posting full length and shorts as much as we can on YouTube and Instagram. But those Patreon memberships really help us put out better content on YouTube too. So like if you guys are enjoying the YouTube content, like just know that that's what's happening. Like we get it from YouTube Rev, we get it from Patreon, we get it from camps, and we dump it all back into the system, right? Our goal is to really make this thing big and make it last a long time. Okay, let's talk about board setup. What got me started? Some of the early influences. I'm gonna shut this. My setup is in the trunk of my car, but I ride a bigger board than most people. I think I have the biggest trucks in all the vert contests that I do. They're Thunder 161s with 8.75. Well, I was riding Jimmy's Pro Mono, and then then TSA stole my board. TSA stole my board at security, and I just had to go to a skate shop and buy a whole new setup. So it's like an 875 Thunder 161s, Dodo super rock hard bushings with 56s. They're small wheels. So, it's an 8.86? That would make sense. I wouldn't know that I've been getting that wrong the whole time. Yeah, Jimmy's 8.86, I guess. No, I don't believe that. Okay, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because, like, what are like the setup theories? I really like feeling like the center of my board is really low to the ground and like it's stable, right? There's boards that you'll stand on that it feels like there's a line down the top of it, and you either have to be this side or that, and it's very hard to get directly over the top of it. Some people do a really good job at that. They're always cruising, they're always turning and making these like constant adjustments. It's a really feel-based thing. But I'll ride a super wide board with super wide trucks and small wheels. So I feel like I'm standing still. Hard bushings, I feel like I'm never moving. That really helps. So at first it really hurt flat ground because the board didn't want to turn. But then I got used to it, and now it's fine. But on vert, what's special about those wide trucks is it feels a little bit awkward, just like at the coping, even with small airs. But as soon as I get over 5 feet, 6 feet high, it's like the board wakes up. It's like how it's supposed to be used. So in contests, X Games or Vert Alert or whatever, everything's done at 5, 6, 7 foot high. So then landing on that low, stable board, that's when everything starts to make more sense. I wouldn't recommend necessarily that big of a board for everyone. I'm 160 pounds. So yeah, if you're like bordering 200, I think that board might actually be really nice. If you're like around 200 pounds, maybe like you like medium or bigger transitions, that board setup might be really nice. But I would recommend you get something that makes it easier to get speed. So you get 58s, we're talking about transition, right? So you get 58s, something that you won't feel so stuck. Like a problem with tight trucks is you have to be really balanced, because if you fall off the side of the board, loose trucks will just skate back underneath you, right? If you have tight trucks and you start to fall, that board isn't going to turn fast enough to get back under you. So loose trucks, in a way, can be more stable than tight trucks. Hey, nobody blues. I'm going to Italy in September. There's a contest there. Would you recommend a rough order to learn tricks? Which ones do you consider foundational? So when I first started skating, I got Rome. Yeah, nobody blues. Rome. Going to Rome. So when I first started skating, I was 3. But then when I was around 6 years old, I got the luckiest thing in the world happened. I was in Canada at Slam City Jam. I don't know what year that stopped, but Slam City Jam, I met Ryan Sheckler, and I was just like this pint-sized little 6-year-old. He must have been 13, and he was in the pro contest. I think he actually won that year. Anyways, he saw me and lifted me over the fence, and I got to skate the park with him. And I don't know anything yet. I can't even kickflip yet, or I must have been 5, something around 5 or 6. Long story short, I met Rodney Mullen, and I was on the inside of the fence. So Rodney is standing at the fence, signing autographs through the fence, and the line is like miles up the stadium. And he's signing every single autograph. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 hours of autograph signings. Anyways, he stops signing, turns around to talk to me, show me little fundamental things, and then I'd go work on them. And then he would get back to signing, and then we just repeated that for like a couple hours. So that was like one of my first memories of like a pro, meeting a pro, or doing anything with like anything in skateboarding. Like we drove across the border to Canada to go to the contest, and then that happens. What that has to do with like what board could you learn foundationally, you should start to understand your body. I don't really care what your board does, right? If you like only been skating 2 months and you can do a tray flip, I don't know what that means. Like, can you skate to 7-Eleven? Like, can you get up and down a curb? Like, when you push, are you like falling off of the board every time you push? Like, when you stop, do you understand how to make sure the nose doesn't turn out and like you don't slip back? Like, there are things that are more important to trick than tricks. And some of those things just would be, and this is straight stuff from when I'm 6. So if I have my front foot, you can't see it on here, but I think you guys will be able to understand it pretty simply. If I take my front shoulder, that's over my front foot. It's always going to be like that. Even when I'm pushing, so I can kick my foot all the way out, my back shoulder can come back, but this right shoulder is always going to be over that right foot, right? I can push, I can do whatever I want. Right shoulder, right foot. You have to understand that, because yes, that's going to make things a lot easier for you, but it's going to start getting in your way really quickly. So if you want to do a half cab, so we're going to go backwards, and I have to stay, right shoulder, right foot. That means I'm going to be looking backwards. And as soon as I change my body position, now I'm going to be falling off of the board. So I would recommend, like, what do I consider foundational tricks? Be able to push, be able to stand on the board on one foot, be able to change your actual body position, not just like lean around in a circle, but like open up your hips, close your shoulders, understand that like when we bend down, we're bending down like we're doing a squat. We're not just leaning over. Separating rotation and turning. Those are two different things, but I see it all the time, experienced and inexperienced skaters. You want to do a back 180, so they turn into it as they spin. Those are two separate things. We don't have to turn the trucks to rotate, right? So all of those things are the first things that you should learn, and you should set your foundation based on understanding certain body mechanics, because as you gain experience, like once you learn kick flips and back 180s, like it actually opens the door for you to do backside flips. You don't have to learn back 180s, kick flips, and then just like send a backside flip because you don't know what's going on. If you start to understand your body, you can actually build on what you're learning, and that'll make your life a lot easier, especially if you dedicate first 2 or 3 years to that or whatever. Best tips for starting late. Yes. Learning to speak skating with your body movements. Yeah. I'm actually, somehow it translates to video. I don't know how, but it, like I'll watch them back. I'm like, yeah, that actually, I mean, I look ridiculous, but it makes sense. If you are older, right? We get this question a lot. And this is one from one of our Patreon members. If you want to improve in your 40s, you have to set your goals based around safety and consistency and not so much around just doing tricks. You guys okay? So so if you are a little bit older, you might have some strength issues. So I don't say issues. I mean, skateboarding takes a lot of strength and agility. So if you're not comfortable just like jumping over a piece of wood that's flipping around, like don't just think that because it has wheels now all of a sudden it's somehow safer. Focus on building your experience, pushing, navigating, like go to the grocery store and then skate back home with your gallon of milk, you know? That kind of stuff will build your feel a lot more than if you're brand new and you just want to go to the skate park and start dropping in. That, as well as, instead of trying to do ollies, try to lift up the nose, right? So instead of just trying to, okay, let's do ollies, let's just lift up the nose and set it down nice and soft, right? Because this motion of setting down the nose soft will actually fix your balance. Because, like, if I'm over the front truck, if I lift the nose and I slide over the front truck, it's all going to slam into the ground. Where if I can lift the nose and I know how to balance enough to set it down softly, now I have the same control that I need to go through a transition back and forth. So there are a lot of safer ways to go about getting into some of the harder stuff, but it's gonna take time. Skating takes a lot of time and a lot of practice to live on your skateboard. Seriously. Can you share again that tutorial about backside airs? So yes, I've gotten that a few times. I deleted that one. Well, I just made it private because uh, it was just me rambling on a computer for 25 minutes. I didn't think that was the one, right? I've actually unlisted a lot of videos, and that's the only one I've gotten requests for, and I've had like 5. Yeah, Pat, same thing. Okay, I'll put it back up. It's just unlisted. I'll put it back up for you guys right after this. Turtle, we covered that. So either watch this once it automatically posts when we're done, or just go through Understanding Vert, the Understanding Vert course, and that's a pretty good start. Another question that I thought was really good from the Patreon. It's a bit longer, so I'm actually just gonna read it. Where is it? How do you balance between having a fun social session with friends and focusing on learning and deliberate practice? I almost find them mutually exclusive because friends don't let me go deep into my practice, and practice doesn't leave room for chilling with people, playing skate, or just landing a bunch of random tricks together. And honestly, that's how life is. So, like, if you're gonna be expecting to get something different out of the session than the rest of the group, but you want to be in the group, like, that's a bit of a recipe for disaster. That's gonna just have to be up to you to when you made the necessary sacrifices for whatever practice you want to get in. You're always gonna have to do that on your own. Because even if you, like, honestly, even if you explained it to them, like, fully, they might still see it as a waste of time. It would be like, I don't like it's happened to me. I remember specifically trying switch backside airs, and I fell on them for 2 or 3 days straight. I made a deal with myself. I was like, I'm gonna skate switch for a month. Whatever I can do, that's how much I'm going to be able to skate. I'll earn skating back by learning the backside air so I can actually start every run. And it didn't work for like a couple of days. So I remember being told, like, man, it looks like you're like, come skate with us. It looks like you're wasting the session, like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, like, this is a big, big moment to either just do it because it makes sense to me, and like maybe sacrifice a week or 2 weeks just so I can get back in the ramp. But then once that's over, like you have to remember on the end of your whatever thing that you want to learn, whatever skill it is that you want to get experience in, once you get that experience, you have it. So like then you can just go do whatever with anyone and you still have what you learned because you actually dedicated the time to it. I've been skating like 15 years. I thought I understood skating, but your level of understanding, thank you. I appreciate that. Uh, yeah, the audio should be good. I did. Oh, I only did front shove. It's shack. Wait, let me read this question. I might not be able to answer it right now. Did you explain backside pop shoves, specifically the back foot pop weight distribution, how it differs on flat than vert? I didn't cover that. Let me see where we are. Um, yeah, this is actually a decent place. Let me write that down really quick because there's actually one more funny question. Shoves, flat, vert. Okay. The one of the other questions from the Patreon is what do I think of Prodigy spinning nines? And I think it is funny to touch on, so I will. First of all, I was that kid. So, like, it doesn't really bother me because I know what it's like and how hard skating really is. So it's not like so one thing I feel like is a kid does a nine and gets a lot of attention and it would like take away from me as an adult well-rounded skater, right? I can do heel flips or whatever it is that makes you like well-rounded and pro for like whatever your skill set is. Some kid can just do a 900 and get a bunch of attention and it almost feels like you're invisible. The problem is doing 900s, it doesn't last very long. Like, yes, you might be able to do it forever, but like the flash in the pan, right? It's like a really big deal when you first learn nines because it just is a big deal, but it's not going to sustain you. So I don't think people should really care so much about uh kids spinning too much and like it's going to ruin everything because a skate career is so hard to sustain that they're going to have to learn other things no matter what. Like there's no way to go about it. You as the adult, a professional, maybe go try a nine, and them as the kid who can do nines, they're going to still have to go through the same process that you went. They're going to get some more opportunities. 900s are sick, but at the end of the day, it's not as polarizing as people seem to think. And yeah, I did a 1260, so yeah, cactus. I mean, it's like maybe that's why I don't think about it as like that such a big like I don't think about it as like how is some how is a kid doing a 900 going to ruin skateboarding? Like even if they do well in a contest. Like I just don't really get it. Maybe because I was doing them. Like I did like the first 900 on Mega Ramp and then went through 1260 and it really doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Like, you know, so I can't really be bothered I can't really be bothered tripping about it too much. Uh David, I that wait, let me read this to make sure, but we already covered that. Looking backwards on half cabs, and if you look where you're going, you would fall. I always hear when you're going fakie, you should look. No, okay. If I do need to clear that up, I just want you to understand that when we're going backwards on a half cab, why our body would naturally want to face backwards. Because when you're doing a nollie front 180, your body doesn't naturally face backwards, but they're the same trick. A half cab would be a regular stance, nollie front 180, or a goofy stance, nollie front 180. But the half cab one, naturally your body sits backwards. That's what I want you to understand, right? So that I hope that makes sense. Yeah, of course, of course, Mr. Smith. I mean, I love doing this stuff. Um, so let's cover some more flat ground stuff. We'll cover a little bit more flat ground and then a little bit more vert, and then we're done. So I will start with this with a common bad habit. Actually, Gargoyle's got a lot of good questions. Nargoyle. um, the biggest bad habit that I'll see is shifting their weight around. When someone doesn't really know what they're doing too much, they'll be standing on the board, and then when they're getting ready for a trick, they'll be really balanced, and then they'll set their back foot on and fall over their back foot, and then get back over their front, and then try the trick. It might be like very small. It might be a very small thing, but even doing it at all is way too much. Like it's already an unstable sport. Like you don't need to be adding to it. Um, but let's cover a bit of flat ground, bit of vert, and then we're done. How can I better control my kickflip? So just like we talked about what a kickflip is, like we get that front foot in the pocket and everything going up. If you can't do that without flipping it, then ignore what I'm about to say next, go practice that. But when you're flipping it, you can actually try to flip it as slow as you can. So if you can get a really high pop with a strong pressure up against the nose with your front foot, and then let the board go and let it flip slow under you, like try to do a floaty 3/4 kickflip. What you'll realize is that as your front foot gets better aim up against the nose of the board, that it will start flipping faster without you trying any harder. Because when you flick fast, you might miss the spot. You might miss the sweet spot. And the flip comes off at a different speed every time. So when you're gaining control of your flips, you get a consistent pressure and you get a consistent speed of the flick by slowing it down, but you won't lose very much speed. How can I stall my 50/50s longer? So this question came on combined with a flat ground question, so I assume that it's ledges. So we talked a bit about transition 50/50, so we can talk about ledges. So obviously, when you're over a ledge, you want your head over your board, over the ledge. But it's hard because you're going to be bending your knees. Most people skating aren't very comfortable bending their knees and keeping their head over the ledge. They're oftentimes falling forward over it. So if I'm doing like a frontside 50/50 and I'm on the ledge and then I lean this way, right? My wheels are going to slip off. Or if I'm doing a frontside 50/50 and I'm nervous of the ledge, like I want to stay away from it and I keep my head off, now that front truck is going to kind of want to follow my head a little bit. And both of those things will pull you off the ledge, actually. Too much, your head too much over it, or your head too much on the inside. Ledge skating is a lot about head placement and hip placement. Obviously, trucks, yes, but like you kind of know what we're all about here. Like get your body right, and then once your board gets into the right spot, you should feel what you're looking for. I love the way you pick a person's problems and address it. Cheers from Australia. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. Why won't my back foot catch when I do a kickflip? You're probably you just reminded me of a very, 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 very important lesson. So we're just going to use flat we're just going to use, these are all, this is all skateboards, right? Nose, tail, nose, tail, nose, tail. So as you do an ollie, right, that front of the board comes up and the back of the board is coming up, right? Now the front foot stops here, and as this tail is rising. So when this motion is happening, oftentimes it's easy to be falling backwards. You wouldn't know that because it doesn't feel like it. But when you're jumping to ollie, it's actually really easy to leak backwards a little bit. Not so much that you fall, but just enough where it's a little bit, it's going to get in the way a little bit as you start flipping the board or as you start turning, right? Let's say like my right shoulder's low, my weight shifted back, and now I'm turning around the corner. Now what's going to feel like, you know how switchback 180s feel terrible? It's because your switch ollies don't get to this section where you can actually get your weight up and over the front of the board, right? It's going to feel like this, but in reality, it's just you're up and that weight, now you're back to where you were, right? So if we're on the ground, I'm right here and I ollie and then I flatten everything out and I'm still on the front side of it, it's going to feel like I'm rocking over the top of the ollie. The main thing is kickflips, the timing of a kickflip is connected to as you pass that center point and you let it go, now that tail can come up. That's how we catch kickflips with our back foot. If we're back here, that tail is never going to rise. That just makes sense, right? I mean, back here, over here, right? What's going to happen as you first try that, you can ollie and land on your nose on the ground. Stick it like that. What's going to happen is you're going to end up falling too far forward sometimes. You're going to end up landing in nose manual. But once you get that weight shift and you can connect it with your kickflips, that back truck should start chasing you up. This tip on control is going to help me by moving ollie and even pop shoves. Yep, it's the same. So you're moving and you want to do an ollie. If you lean back a little bit, it's going to be even more dramatic if you're skating, if you're moving. Pop shove-its too, right? With the nature of pop shove-its, it's easy to push our back foot through. So if we do that and lean back, now the board's way out there. You know how easy it is to land a pop shove-it with one foot and just push and get back on it? So we can pop up and just feel like we're transitioning through this middle part of the ollie with a lot of balance, and we can stay on that lead side. It's very difficult. It's why switch is so hard. It's why kicks are so hard for a lot of people. I mean, that's a real one, and like if it takes weeks to practice, like that's completely fine. So the next question would be, if you're kick flipping or heel flipping, does your body weight send the nose or just remain in the center? Very, very connected to that last question. We want to keep our weight centered, but that's going to require a little bit of balance through the top. How far do you need to crouch to get into an ollie? Barely. How far do you need to crouch to jump? Right? So yes, if I'm trying to set a world record vertical, I'm going to have to get way down. But I know you can't see my knees. But if I just bend down this much, maybe a little more than that, I can get off the ground. Enough to get up a curb, enough to get up 2 stairs. No problem. Watch the backsider video we just posted on Instagram, where she's trying backsiders and bends down way too much before. That'll paint a pretty good picture. I had this one, buzzkill, slams. Let me finish up with some vert stuff, and then we'll do a little bit of like straight shooter Q&A. How do I go from pumping to dropping in on vert? So the thing about vert skating, right? It's a completely different life going from up here into the ramp versus just going back and forth. What I would recommend is you pump, you kind of abandon like those really harsh goals that you need to drop in. Like there's something wrong with you if you don't drop in. And you need to say that it's okay if you pump for like 100 or 200 hours. Just with that perspective alone, you're going to start to get comfortable going up into the vert and floating in new ways. So, yeah, you might be able to start playing with the coping. You can play with the coping and do little power slide, fakie to fakie power slides, alley-oop frontside, ollie fakie ollie. Then when you're building that kind of actual foundation on a vert ramp, dropping in won't seem like it's something like way out in the distance over there. I think people just are in a huge rush. Partly why kids learn so fast because they just pump and pump and pump and pump for 2 years, 3 years, and then they still do it by the time they're 11, and it's like, looks like it happened really fast. But if you're in your 20s and you want to skate vert, like you're gonna have to learn how to bail, you're gonna have to learn how to slide, and you're gonna have to learn how to do kick turns and power slides. Like it's gonna take hundreds of hours no matter how you cut it. Just pump from the bottom, and I wouldn't trip out about it too much. We have a lot of videos on dropping in too. So watch one of our videos on dropping in on YouTube to clear up some like basic misconceptions. Also, we have a first drop-in course on Patreon for $10. Is it easier to learn tricks in park or vert? What do you think? You think it's easier on park or vert? I think it's partly depends on the experience you have. The way that I learn is the way that I teach. So I learn by skating on flat ground. Doing like, if I want to learn a kick from 501 vert, I would do ollie manual and ollie and push the board out and see where it lands, or pull the board back under me and see if I can still get into a manual, and then do the same thing on vert, and then mess with kick flips until I find a little combo that works for me. But that's because I'm comfortable on a vert ramp. So if you're not comfortable on those big transitions, then you might want to just focus on the smallest mini ramp you can find and work your way up, right? I might have an easier time working my way from big transition to small one. You might have an easier time working from small to big. How do I break habits of early grab to late grab? This could be an entire video in itself, but we're going to use a bank again, because I think it's a lot easier for our brains to understand what's going on a bank than it is for a quarter pipe. So if we think about ollies, right, we know that ollies are this way off the ground. So if we want to get air here, we know that ollies would be that way off the ground, right? It starts to get confusing when we look at airs and we know that they're straight up, right? But in reality, an air that is straight up, if you're early grabbing, is going to be actually going down. You're going to be going down into the ramp. So to change that, you're going to have to feel what it's like to go off of the ramp out without grabbing. You just have to feel what it's like to float, right? So if you early grab, that means you're going down into the ramp. So you need to feel the opposite direction for it to even start to make sense for you. And the quicker you just do something that gets you over that hurdle, the better. I'll have people go up the transition and just jump literally just jump out to flat, safe as they can, but get that feeling. And they'll do that thing where they start rolling down the windows and it gets a little shocking and they'll look at me like, what was that feeling? And it's like, that is how you take off. Not exactly, but it's better than what you were doing, for sure. You did see me at Ring City vert ramp when I was like 5 or when I was like 8, probably. Okay, let's finish these last ones and then that's that. Axle stalls. Oh, that's interesting. So how I can do backside 180 kick turns, but axle stalls aren't turning. I can't turn enough into axle stalls. Wait, did I say that right? Backside kick turns work fine, but I can't turn enough into axle stalls. So this comes back into what are our weight shifts doing? Like, yeah, your kick turn's working, but like, are you going up the ramp and leaning back? Because then all you can really do is turn back into the ramp. That doesn't mean that you have a strong rotation. So I would focus on your kick turns and don't lean back. Like if you're going up the transition, don't lean back and turn. Actually try to stay over that front foot and feel like you're opening and then closing that door where you're actually feel like you're more spinning or rotating and not so much like you're diving back in the ramp. Because if you dive in the ramp, it's not much rotation. And when you get up onto the deck and you need to rotate to get into 50-50, if all you do is dive forward, they're all going to under rotate. Your weight's too much on your front foot, but it's because your weight's too much on your back foot when you're doing kick turns. Right? It's a axis change. Well, I don't know what you mean from that. Moving X from Y straight up, that's crazy. That's scary. Well, okay, I mean it a bit hyperbolic. Like I'm not just gonna like be rotating like this. Like even if I squat, I can spin, right, without diving down. That's really what I mean. Separating you diving towards the ground and what you do to spin. It's confusing because the shape of the ramp is going to change. So you're automatically going to be leaned into the ramp a little bit. You just don't have to help it. Back lips on flat feel fine. Back 50s on flat feel fine. But back Smith on a flat feels like instant stick to spine splash. Okay, what you can do, work on this on your manuals. Ollie. Don't move your body and push your board out in front of you and land on your tail. And leave your body where it is. So just with your feet. Pick up the board, move it out, land on your tail. You're not going to land on your tail by leaning back. You're just going to do it by where the board is. So then you'll get a feel for as you get into back Smith. Because you get into back lip, it can be right under you. Get into 50-50, it can be right under you. But you get into back Smith, now that front truck is gone. So your back truck isn't far enough in front of you to where you can actually push through it. Rodney and Tony in Germany, that's amazing, dude. How do you keep the board under you while spinning fives? The biggest thing on fives, right? So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this isn't rotating, right? Also, if your timing is off on your pump and you load too much into the ground, now as soon as you take off, your board is going to be wanting to run away, right? So that same thing that we want to go from this way, and then we want our body to be going this way. So now we're going straight up. So this, you're not moving over the deck, you're not moving into flat. Your board is feeling very light on the ground, right? if you get that right, you can actually start spinning pretty easily. And your board's not going to run away. Same with flip tricks, same with everything. But I would recommend that you take off just to do a backside 360 and you put your board to the ramp. You can do this under coping. You put your board to the ramp at 360 and you just look around the corner. Like if you can get that far, you can absolutely do an entire 540 just by adding a bit more. Yeah, we want to go to Mexico City for sure. We've talked to a few skate parks there. We'd love to hear from you guys if there's interest. We definitely like to travel. You can email Tyler at SKATEiQ.com. For inquiries, and we can figure out how to get me out there for sure. Wherever you guys want to go. I mean, we'll travel anywhere. We just have to make it work. Having a hard time. How is it different from ollie on flat? So we're gonna cover two more things, and then we'll have to say bye. Do you want your body to be on the heel side for fives? I'll touch on that just because we just did it. So when you take off on a five, if I'm leaning toe side the whole time, that's pretty awkward, right? Now that board is going to end up like way behind me. So what does center feel like? Like if you ever done a backside three, like, well, do you stay on your toes for the whole three? No, that board's going to feel like it's sliding back on your heels. So being actually balanced is going to feel like heel side to most people because they've been toe side while spinning for so long. That doesn't mean actually on the heel side, right? It should feel very balanced, but to a lot of people, that's going to feel like heels. But I don't want you taking off towards your heels to try to fix it. You're just going to have to learn how to actually rotate flat into. Yeah, no problem, Sean. I don't know if you said that backwards because it sounds like I stopped you from skating. Correct. Wait, let me. Axle stalls on pool coping that sticks out, right? So as you, I'll be done in like 10 minutes. Okay. So as you go up the transition and you slide this way, your wheels are going to be hitting the, you're going to be hitting the like thick pool coping from the bottom. So a good way to get around that is to just wait. I mean, you're going to have to ride out through that coping and then as soon as you feel yourself go over the coping, you can push your back foot. So now your truck is on it and then you set your front truck down. So you can't really cheat and start from inside of the ramp because now your wheels are going to be hitting the pool coping on the way up. You can actually just ride through it a little more and then really attack it once you're actually above it. I feel like my height. Hank asked if my height hurt or helped my abilities. I feel that the thing that makes the most difference is that I started when I was young, and I've kept doing it. So I never took I didn't take 3 years off when I was growing. Right, I've taken breaks, 6 months, a year breaks, but it was never when when I was going through like huge growth spurts or anything like that. So I feel like just getting things every day when I'm like at the height I am, it doesn't really feel like I'm a tall person skating or I'm short or whatever. Okay, last one. I'd like some more tips on jumping on the board halfway up the ramp. Right. So we're gonna do another bank example. It's easier to draw and it's easier to visualize. So if you want to throw down this way and skate away there, you know, when you like run up and jump on it, most people will run into the ramp like they're running into the wall and step on it and then slip out. So what I want you to do, you can do it with your board in hand, but run up the wall and then let yourself fall back and like bail, slide on your butt, do a knee slide. So you can actually get up to this position, wait, feel yourself coming down without your board. Then once you feel that naturally happen, now you know when you should actually be getting on your board. So the odds are it was just early. You're just trying to get on the board too early and falling forward. Or same thing, you have to lean so far back because if you're trying to get on early, it's gonna be pretty awkward to stay back here. But if you can get up and then start to feel yourself come down and skate out of it, you're like, perfect. Okay, that I mean, we covered all the pre-written questions. It only took an hour and 45 minutes. Great Q&A. Thank you. I'm happy you guys liked it. This is my most viewed stream ever, besides when I illegally streamed the Olympics. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, okay. It's gonna be automatically posted. Thanks for $2, Donka. You're looking good too. Coping's really scary. It's a really scary mystery. Not much skaters know much about it. So we've gotten that a few times, that coping is like an absolute nightmare to deal with. We're gonna do some more courses. Obviously, we're gonna do lip tricks on vert and mini ramp, and there will be coping stuff that's involved in both of those, but it will be spread out a bit. I think I'd like to do a separate one of how to get on and off of coping, backside and frontside. Like it's just about coping, so you can take it wherever you want. I think that would be a really good idea. It's really like there's 10 things, but you know, once you get them, it's not so much of a nightmare. It just takes practice. You're the man. Thanks, Joe. I mean, I hope this worked for you guys because I'm dealing with a $5 Walmart board and a whiteboard. So it's not. I would like to, if I could have like an actual piece of concrete and a skateboard, and I was able to actually show some things. That would be nice. But the logistics with internet that's going to take a while to work out. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming. I had a great time. We'll do another one of these pretty soon. We got the questions. Like, if you want to make sure your questions get seen and answered, the Patreon is the best place to do that. Those are the questions that we start with. But we also post on Instagram and the stories, and you can shoot questions there. And I try to read the chat here, but obviously, hopefully we keep growing, so it's even busier next time. Whiteboard, it felt like a college lecture. Okay, well, thank you guys. I'll see you next time. Make sure you go watch all the videos because that really helps us grow. And yeah, I hope you liked it. Thank you guys.